right, good evening. Welcome. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, May 24th. The time is 7:08 p.m. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to go right to agenda item B, which is presentations of awards and proclamations. And tonight we're going to start with an appreciation for NCTV, channels 14 and 16, if they'd like to come forward. The Newington Board of Education would like to share appreciation with the NCTV staff for the support provided in communicating Board of Education meetings and various school activities to the public. It is our pleasure to turn to channel 14 or 16 to view programs relating to our school system. It is important for the school district to provide information to the community on the accomplishments and needs in Newington. Many members of the public have commented on viewing the presentations on channel 14 and 16. It is an additional step to foster greater communication between the school and the community. The board would like to make a small donation to your organization because we sincerely appreciate your support. Thank you. Any other board member comment? Emily?
Don't run away yet. I just wanted to say thank you because it really is important for the community to be able to see what's going on here. And I know a lot of people will tell me that they were watching the meeting on TV. I know it's really hard for parents and families and people in the community to come to the meetings. People have other stuff going on. So being able to watch it at home or on the go has been really great for people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Sylvia? Thank you. Now you can run away. Okay. All right. We are going to move to agenda item B, number 2, recognition of some Academy Aerospace students. I think we have Mr. Holmes, the program leader, and is Mrs. Garavel here as well? Yes, the Academy Science teacher. And they are here with... let's see, they had 7 winners from the Central Regional Invention Convention who all competed statewide, and 4 students actually won at the state level and are going to go on to compete at the national level. So I'll hand the microphone over to you, Mr. Holmes.
Right, yeah, well, first, sure. Thanks. Testing. Testing, 1, 2, okay. So first I'd like to just say thank you to the board, superintendent, all the administration, because 2 years ago, just a little over that, I got hired. There was no such thing as the Academy of Aerospace and Engineering. And we've worked very hard for 2 years to build a strong program. And if I were in your shoes, I would want to know, has it been worth it? Did we spend the money, and has this helped the town, or is it producing anything? And it's hard to tell if you just walk through a classroom. You might see a good day, you might see a not so good day. So you need some way to measure using outside impartial judges and criteria that says, yes, this is a good program, or there's something going on that's right here. So we held a local invention convention. I made it mandatory for all the students, and we had a few others join. So we're 56 kids. We sent 9 of those up to the regional invention convention. We should have had 40%, or about 3 or 4 kids go to states. We had 7 go to states. And then out of those, we would have been lucky to have 1 go to nationals. We had 4 go to nationals. So I did the math out. We had over 10 times the number of winners, if you add on the awards and everything that these kids earn, than the average school. And Newington got a lot of recognition at the state invention convention. So it was very impressive. I was so impressed with the students. Ms. Garabell and I have both been working hard, as I say, to get them ready all year, and they really came through. We have 5 of them here, and just by coincidence, the 2 girls that won are not here. I'm going to introduce the 8th graders. Ms. Garabell will do the 7th graders. So I'll just lead off with Olivia Mullings. Olivia actually got the top award. She earned 4 awards for her invention, which was called TempSafe, which was a device that would detect if someone left a baby or pet in a car, and it would do a variety of things, beginning with opening the windows and sending a message to the owner, and then eventually dialing 911 and activating the horn to save the life of that baby or a pet that was left behind. She won a Family Award for Innovation in Technology, Boehringer Ingelheim Life Sciences Award, United Technologies Moving the World Forward Award, and a McCormick, Paulding, and Huber Patent Award, which they said was worth approximately $10,000 in free legal help. And she's already sat with the lawyers twice and is going through a patent search for her invention. That was the last award mentioned, so that was like, again, for Newington, that was the last award, very big fanfare. They had a special guest speaker, meter, the whole bit. So we got the top recognition at the State Invention Convention. Olivia, they had a death in the family, so she wasn't able to be here tonight, but she will be going to Washington with the other 3 national winners. Okay, our other 8th graders, and I'll let them explain their awards and everything, are, and just in order, it'd be Alec George first, Tyler Frohock, and then Brandon Fiore.
All right, so hello, my name's Alec George, and I created the smart helm. So essentially what this is basically a helmet used by firefighters or policemen that they would place over their head and use as a normal day helmet, but instead it would have sensors over their temples so it can measure their vitals at all times, and it would be sending back the signal about what it is from their antenna on the helmet. Basically, rather than a witness, if anything went wrong, a witness calling 911, it would be their vitals. If it went below a heartbeat, it would automatically contact an ambulance, so it could go to the person's exact location and get immediate help rather than relying on someone else. So that's just a basic overview on my invention, but overall, after going through the regionals in the state and then finally to UConn, it was a really good experience, and I really liked everything about it because you get to see what everyone else made and all the other peers that I had that went, and you get like compare and contrast, and it was like a really cool experience because it was my second time going because I went last year too. But for some of the awards that I won there, the first award that I won was actually the first award that they gave out in the entire invention convention, and it was the Fire Marshal Safety Award. So basically I was awarded from the fire marshals that were sponsoring by the Connecticut Invention Convention. And my second one was the Young Entrepreneur Award, which basically means that I would have to go to a meeting in the fall to give a presentation to entrepreneurs to see if they would like to invest in my invention, and I would have to give a speech to other entrepreneurs firstly before I present. And my last award was the Recognized Inventor Award, which is basically an award for being recognized as top 3 in my circle, which was like a way of expressing like a group of 8 kids to make it more organized. So I won top 3 of 8 in my circle. Thank you. And also, before I end, this also couldn't be possible without Mr. Holmes and Ms. Garabell for making this mandatory first for everyone to get the experience and try to bring out something that everyone could possibly make. And as we can tell, if 4 kids went to nationals, I think it was a pretty good call.
Hi, my name is Tyler Frohock, and my invention was the whiteout vest. Basically, it was a vest that you would wear under your clothes to prevent hypothermia, whether you're doing winter sports like hiking and climbing or whatever you may be doing. So it was a really cool experience going to both the regional and state level of the invention convention because I've never gone before, and I really like inventing stuff and trying out different things. More mechanical for me personally, but it was just really cool. It was just a really cool experience going to both those things and seeing everybody else's inventions and how they kind of figured out their different problems that they had in their lives. So my two awards were, one of them, which was Alec also got, was the Recognized Inventor Award, which basically, as he said, meant 3 out of 8 people in our circle. And I also got a certificate for a free UConn early college program, which basically was a certificate for any program, whether it be like engineering, sciences, like any advanced course, basically. So, also, as Alex said, I'd like to thank Mr. Holmes because none of this would be possible without him and his personal time and personal money going into this program. So,
There's
thanks.
no money. This time.
Okay.
That's true.
Thank you all for having me here.
So my name is Brandon, and I invented the thermoplate. And what it did was, basically, if you forgot to put out your dinner or something like that out onto the table, you could keep it out on the counter without really without needing to worry about it. So you could carry on with whatever you were doing before then. And that's basically it. But I got one award, which was the same award as Tyler and Alec. The recognized inventor, and where I got one free college class. Right. One. So yeah. And once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Holmes because he started all of this. He gave us this chance to get this far. So, thank you.
Yeah, guys, do me a favor. Just keep the microphones. We want everybody at home to be able to hear you.
Real close like this? Yes, okay. So I'm Holly Garavel, the other teacher at the academy, and I was here, I think, in December to talk about the progress we've made so far this year, and I'm very happy to be back tonight to recognize all of these wonderful children that I have the privilege to go in every day and make science, make engineering come alive, and it's really a joy for me. I'm very proud of my 7th graders that also advanced to regionals and to the state. Jasmine Barber, who is not here tonight, will be going on with the 2 that are going to Washington next week. And her invention was Snow Away. And it was quite unique, especially since it was happening around the time we got some of those snowfalls in March. And it was a large plexiglass that she thought of putting on wheels. And it was kind of that in between a shovel and a snowblower. And she had a great pitch for it and did very well. She received that same type of inventor award, recognized inventor award, and another award that was presented for, I don't remember the name of it. Science and Engineering, right, the Science and Engineering Award. So she was sorry that she couldn't be here tonight. But I'm going to turn it over to Emmanuel Thomas, and he's going to tell you about his invention. And then Shivan Patel will end us out tonight.
All right. Hello, my name's Emmanuel Thomas, and I created the charger clip. And so this is something that has to do with our Chromebooks that we use every single day in school. And so essentially what this is, it's almost like a clip that you will attach to your Chromebook and your charger, which will keep the charger into place so that it doesn't move around or stop charging. And so this is a big problem, especially for, let's say, pet users who may have their pets running around on the floor and, I guess, moving the charger out of the place, and the kids don't have their Chromebooks charged. And so I was able to get to state, and Unfortunately, I didn't win any awards, but I'm still really happy of my progress and how I got there. And it was a great experience meeting a lot of new kids and talking to new people and finding on um, how they solved different problems that they had in their life and how unique their ideas were. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Mr. Holmes and Miss Garavel for allowing me to be here, and without them, I wouldn't be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shivam Patel, and I'm the creator of Stop, Drop, and Spot. And basically, my invention is a beacon of light during a fire, because smoke will fill up a room and you won't be able to see anything during a fire. So my invention will be near a fire extinguisher, and it will start sending flashes of light, giving a signal to people where their fire extinguisher is, so they can have an easier way of getting there. And the awards I got were I got the Connecticut Academy of Science and Engineering Award, and I got the Recognized Inventor Awards, which was, like Alec and Tyler said, I had one of the best three inventions out of my circle. And the Connecticut Science and Engineering Award, they invited me to a dinner, which I recently went on Monday. And basically, they gave me another award for being there and getting an actual award from the Academy. And then I also got a award from the Congressman John Larson. So he sent me another award. And then, again, I'd like to thank Ms. Garavel and Mr. Holmes for letting me do this, especially because I wasn't even a part of the Academy before they started this. So Ms. Garavel and Mr. Holmes let me join in before I joined the Academy. So it was really a fun experience. I'm really excited because I'm one of the national state finalists that's going to nationals. So hopefully I can get some awards there, and it'll be really fun.
I'm going to just brag on Shivan just a little bit. I was with him at UConn Monday night, and for an hour and a half, he stood in front of his invention, because he had to bring his invention and his board, and he talked to engineer after college professor that just popped up and asked him questions. Every time I went over to try to tell him he was doing a good job, he was talking to someone like it was no big deal. So that was a great event with all of these academia and engineers from all around Connecticut that had their annual meeting at UConn. So I was especially proud that night that he represented us so well.
Thank you very much. Any board member comment? Jan, I'll go first. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking to us and telling us all about your inventions. Amazing, blown away, wow. We're all so proud of you. Really, you're putting Newington on the map. Thank you so much for everything, and you guys are amazing. Keep it up. Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, and you're doing such a nice job representing Newington out there. Just listening to you speak here tonight, which I know can be very intimidating. You're doing a fabulous job. You don't even seem nervous, so I'm really impressed with that. But I cannot believe the things that you've invented, and what a really nice way to show off what the kids have learned through the year, and just one piece of what they've learned. But a really, really nice presentation. I'm really excited for you guys to go on to the nationals. I can't wait to hear how you do. So please report back. I can't wait to hear. So good luck.
Mr. Sylvia.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm speechless. Fundamentally, you guys are Thomas Edisons, so you're not allowed to leave Newington ever, okay? We need you in this town to help us overcome a lot of our issues. But what you guys explained to us was amazing, absolutely just phenomenal. And I'm, I can only pile on to the other comments here. Not only is Newington proud of you, but our state is proud of you, okay? And we're proud that your efforts and how you went and represented our town. I can only say that, 50 some years ago, I wish I had your intelligence, but I still don't have it. But you guys really are amazing. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And you remember, you can't leave town.
Dr. Braverman?
So I was a judge at the Invention Convention. I was in row D. But I didn't do any of you guys. But I am so impressed with what you've done, and the number of times that you've presented already is amazing. I mean, you are, last year, Helen Charoff, who used to lead the Invention Convention, got to go to the White House. The winners of this next level might get to go do something fabulous like that. So you guys are doing amazing, amazing work, and the girls too. And we are so impressed. And we know that there'll be a new group next year. So what did you think of the whole experience? Maybe one of you being at UConn, at Gamble, and all the different, I think there were 500 inventors there that day. Is it,
Well, I guess it was pretty intimidating at first, especially for me, because it was my first time ever being there. But I can speak for all of us. It was really fun, and it was a really exciting day. And it was just a fun experience, and really just something that we all, I guess, could wish for.
well, you survived the judges, because there were 3 judges, right, that went and interviewed you all. So that was great work. I'm very proud of you guys. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. It's so nice to see our students so passionate and excited about what they're doing. It's really, really exciting. So thank you to our 2 wonderful Academy teachers. A lot of wonderful things going on. And like Jane said, you're putting us on the map, and we are impressed and proud. And thank you very much. And I know Dr. Braverman, she's been talking about Invention Convention. We've been on the board together. This is our 10th year. You finally got. She's been saying, where are the children? And why aren't they at Invention Convention? And it took a while. You've talked about DECA, you talked about invention, and here we are. So thank you very much. Great job. Thanks for being here, too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hang on. Wait. I'm sorry. I misspoke. One more board member.
That's okay. I also wanted to say, Sharon, since I got on the board, I've been hearing Sharon say about that. And she's like, if you want to go and you want to be judges, just hearing, like, I wish I had the time that time. I'm going to try to make sure that next year I get to go judge, because I want to see all this stuff. Because it's just really impressive, and you guys are all impressive, and you're such good presenters as well, so you're not only honing your skills on your inventions and your patents, you're good speakers. You know how to represent your product, and it was really proud to listen to you tonight, so congratulations.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Bob.
I'd like to congratulate both teachers and also the kids for accepting the challenge and coming forth with all this great certificates of awards, and wish you the best of luck and continued success. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think now we're done. And we always tell the students, you feel free to stay, but you're more than welcome to leave. We totally understand if you'd like to take off.
They have lots of homework to do.
Yeah. Again, thank you for coming. Okay, we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, agenda item C, which is public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. As a reminder, our phone number is 860-665-8736. Or if any member of the audience would like to come forward to speak during public participation, now is the time. Come on forward. Yep. If you could just please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Belinda Frohock, 155 Eddie Lane. And I just, it's really emotional. I'm sorry. But my son is leaving Wallace this year, and he has, no direction next year in high school because there's no funding for the teacher of the academy. I think that's a shame. I mean, you just heard the good work that Mr. Holmes has done. He has put blood, sweat, and tears into this program. I've seen it firsthand. I mean, he's an awesome role model. He brings his his experience in the service. These kids would not have done what they just did without him. I mean, I went to Newington High. It always had a good reputation, but this is kind of, to me, a disservice to the kids for the academy students. And you're talking about putting Newington on the map or keeping them on the map. We're going to be on the map for the wrong reason. I mean, other towns are going to look at us and say, what are you doing? Why put all this money into the development of these academies at the high school level and not have teachers for it? It's really disheartening because now my son is locked out of other classes and he has to kind of re-gear his whole career path. It's just, it's sad. You know, I don't know if funds could be reappropriated somehow. I don't know, I feel really sad. It's a shame.
Thank you. We don't normally respond back, but we take your comments, so we appreciate you coming. And we are going to talk later on tonight about what our proposal was to the town council last night, and we'll discuss what the result was of that. And basically, we're more to come. It's still being discussed, but yeah. Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Good evening. My name is Ricardo George.
Can you just give your address, please?
Yes, 130 Waverly Drive.
Thank you.
And I want to say, speak up, about the same matter. I mean, we just had this display of talent that was created in 2 years. This academy. I mean, it's 2 years old, and we have this kind, profits from this, and and like the last speaker said, I mean, the kids already had picked their classes. Now all of a sudden we got this news that it's not going to be, we're not going to follow this up into the high school. Now, I mean, how these kids already picked the classes, the academy classes, now they have to repick, their classes. Most of them are fulfilled. Now they're going to end up with classes that, they don't really want and they don't deserve, because these are, I mean, I speak for, for myself. I have an outstanding student. And he's going to end up with classes that not up to his level. So this, it's one point that that I want to bring across, being a parent and that part. But another part of this that makes me upset as well is all of this investment that was made, not just at Wallace, but that was made at a high school. We're talking about, I heard something around $2 million that we invested at the high school, plus, whatever. I mean, I know it was not all city money that went into the wing that was built at Wallace, but I mean, some of the money I'm sure came from town, and we have all this money invested, and all of a sudden, I mean, as a business, I mean, I'm a businessman, and as a business point of view, this is, I mean, nonsense. I mean, we already invested this much money. Whatever we have to put more for the teachers, I mean, insignificant, comparing to what already was invested. It does not make sense. I mean, it's, I'm hoping that, among all of us that would come up with something, to make this work. Because I mean, this display that we had here, I mean, it's, what else do we need? What else do we need to see to, to realize that this is a great investment, in our children? I mean, from one side it's a great investment, but from one side, we already invested all this money. We're going to throw all this away? I mean, and the kids that are coming up, the sixth graders, I mean, they're going to look at this program. Why? I mean, there's no sequence to this. I mean, we do 2 years and at the middle school, and then it's gone. I mean, why get into something like this that has no sequence after this? I mean, it's nonsense. The whole thing is nonsense. And I know, I mean, as a business person, I know we can't make omelets with our eggs, but we could be creative. And I mean, and times ask for that. We have to be creative, and we have to make this thing work. That's my hope, that I'm sure with all the parents, and the taxpayers. Because, I mean, this was money that was invested. We're going to just throw it away. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to come forward? Okay. Thank you. We will move to item D on our agenda, which is the approval of the consent agenda. If I could have somebody, Dr. Braverman, if you could read the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And can I have a second? Seconded by Emily. And all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Moving along the agenda, agenda item E is old business. Seeing that we have none, we will move right to item F, which is new business, and we have quite a few different things to go through. We have some actions, we have some reports. Anything that's in action, we've actually looked at or spoken about in the past, but we will start with action number 1, which is the healthy food certification. And should we read the motion first? Yeah, okay. Can I have somebody read the recommended motion? Okay.
Move the Board of Education authorize the Superintendent of Schools to submit an application to the Connecticut State Department of Education indicating all food items made available for sale to students will meet the national standards during the period of time, July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. Such certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activity on school premises, whether or not school-sponsored.
Can I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Tofelt. And discussion. Do we want to? Mr. Sylvia?
It's just sort of a question. How do we validate that any fundraising activities, the cupcakes and such, meet the state requirements or national requirements? I mean, I understand the intent. We want to do it, but how do we do that? I mean, am I taking a test tube to every brownie and dropping some, I don't know.
Yeah. Dana, would you like to join us?
It's just a moment. It's just an inquisitive. That's all. I'm just curious.
Okay. Most of our fundraising has to do with the sale to adults, and that's exempt. The board can elect to have exemptions around the food items, and as long as it's at an event, and it's at a location of the event, and it's after school or on a weekend, you could sell whatever you like.
All right, so I'm reading this as to say all food offered for sale. So, but we have an exception process.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And over the past 9 years, the board has elected to have those exemptions.
So, is the language appropriate? We're not making note of an exception process.
That was in your policy, so you have it in your policy.
Right.
This is really just, do you want to keep up the healthy food certification? It's much more rigorous. The board does get, I want to say, about $30,000. About that?
The food service department gets an
What did I
additional
say?
$35,000.
What did I say, something?
The board.
Oh, yeah,
That's it.
sorry. The food service department gets $30,000.
Yes.
And so if the board elects not to go with this, you probably would need to raise your prices a little further.
All right, so we don't need to make a mention to the other
No, it's in your
policies.
policy. No, your policies are all the board's policy, so
All
this
right.
is really just.
Thank you.
I think, Bob, you should.
I was just gonna say, on the policy, I think we made a adjustment on the time period
I recall that.
at
I'm just reading
3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
or in
My
any
question was
event.
just around the language that was in this saying all food, right?
I understand.
This is just the
That was my-
federal.
that
this
was
is
my
just for,
question.
State. This is state healthy food certification.
So in regards to the healthy food certification, when they talk about food items, it's outside of school meals. So basically, it's all your snack items, a la carte items, because all the school meals, they follow different federal regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion that was made and seconded. We had some discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to go to action item 2. Dana, stay right there. Can I have somebody read the recommended motion around the school lunch price adjustments? Cindy?
Move the Board of Education increase the cost of school lunches for the 2017-2018 school year by 15 cents as recommended by the superintendent.
Can I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Braverman. And discussion now. Mr. Sylvia?
Is 15 cents enough?
Yes.
Slam dunk. That's all I needed to
Okay.
know. I mean, will we see this again next year, or is it possible that we'll see it again next year?
Yeah. The last pay increase that we had was 5 years ago, and prior to that, it was 6 years ago.
Oh, all right.
We are hopeful that we can probably get a couple of years out of this, but it really all depends on funding that is available to us. So I can't say
Right.
100% that I may not be here, I may be here
But
next year.
Right. So it's good for a few years at best estimate. Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, so we had the motion. It was made and seconded. We discussed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Dana. We will now have, let's see, under item F, new business, we have a report on the Smarter Balance technology. We've heard a lot of rumblings about this, so we want to hear about this. Who gets the pleasure?
So Craig will come to the table, and Craig and I will talk with you about it. If you would take out, there are 2 item F3s, and one is a memo that was in your white folder for the last board meeting. And it really is because I don't want you to think that when the Smarter Balance results come in, whether good, bad, or indifferent, that we're trying to cover tracks. What I do need the board to understand is last year we had concerns about our results because we felt that they were not a clear reflection of our students' learning, and that was due to some technology issues. At that time in the fall, when I spoke to the State Department of Education, they were unable to go back into the system and be able to account for anything. Early on, when we began practice testing with Smarter Balanced, you'll notice in the first paragraph that we did contact and work with Craig in the IT department, and we were given pretty good assurances that we could move forward. As students began those practice test items for Smarter Balance, we hit one roadblock after another. Students were bumped off the testing system. They couldn't access it. We kept Craig's IT department very busy. We postponed testing, and instead of testing prior to April vacation, IT had some work to do. They worked diligently with vendors, etc., and we began testing after April vacation. For the most part, we saw an improvement and there were fewer incidents. This past Monday, I did have the bureau chief from Student Assessment from the State Department of Education at John Wallace while we tried to test 3 of our 5th graders again who have consistently been unable to access Smarter Balanced. And he must have really great karma because as my friend Abe stood there, we were successfully able to test the 3 students who were consistently bumped off. I will say to you, we began our MAP testing and we've had a few more issues. So there are a couple of matters that I want you to know up front because I don't know what the data will look like from this one-time test. But I do applaud all of my administrator at the building level colleagues and our support staff because they were troopers through the whole thing. They didn't worry about it. They had kids close Chromebooks. Craig got a system going. We exchanged Chromebooks. But I do want you to be aware today that if results do not come back the way that we anticipate from what our data through tells us, then we will have to do some more work in terms of why it is that we're struggling with accessing the Smarter Balance through our the kiosk and lockdown browser they give us.
Okay, so before Craig speaks, I still have a question. I don't understand the impact of how many students were impacted, how many were able to take the test without an issue. What do our stats look like? I mean, I don't understand the scope of the problem.
Well, it would depend on where they were, and Craig has the details of it, but there
Okay.
were times when 2 students in a class couldn't test, and there were other times when only 6 students in a class could test. So that was the variable. There was nothing that was ever consistent about it. Every student has completed the test.
Okay, so at some time they were able to.
Sometime they were able to get back. We did have a student in fourth grade at Elizabeth Green, who, when she finished all of her assessments, said to her teacher, you know, it was really interesting. I never saw the entire test question, but I guessed at what it must be asking. So my dear friend Abe at the State Department was called immediately, and I had them reopen her test, which allowed the student to be able to go back in and re-look at each of her items to make sure that she had answered them in the manner in which she wanted to answer them. So that's the depth of some of the problems that we've been suffering and limping through. It is unique to Newington, is what the state tells me. So I'll turn it to Craig.
That unique piece is what made this such a tremendous challenge for us. As you're aware, we had challenges last year as well, and it seemed to stem from our conversion from our Windows laptops to when we brought the Chromebooks on board. And it's very, very much isolated to the Smarter Balance test. So we've been working very diligently with the state and with the Smarter Balance Testing Consortium group, the Air Secure Testing organization, to troubleshoot that process. At their direction and in working with those vendors, and especially the state of Connecticut, who is our internet service provider, they provide our access to the world to us. With their guidance and their direction, they were adamant that the problem was elsewhere. It was not a problem on their network. It was something internal. So we turned over every stone, every leaf. We completely re-architected our environment to meet the specifications that they were recommending we do. And we did that through the course of about 9 months. And we've been testing ever since last May, preparing for the Smarter Balance test. I can't tell you how many times I've taken the grade 3, grade 6, grade 8 math assessments myself. Hopefully I would do well if I had to do it again. But things were looking very, very promising, as Pamela mentioned. And when we started the process, all of a sudden, the difficulties reemerged. And what students would experience on their device would be they would sign into the test, they would progress through a question or two, and all of a sudden, perhaps the question would start and maybe the graphic wouldn't come up, or the answer box might not show up. It was pieces of the testing questions that were missing, as if someone kind of came into the classroom and dropped a bunch of papers on the floor and then picked them up and the students were missing page 3 or page 4. So when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of how it all works, it gets quite complicated. And I did prepare some visuals for you all to see what happened, but the very positive information I can share with you today, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share with you, with very, very high degree of confidence, we have solved this problem. And the problem was isolated to be our internet service provider and how their equipment was configured to communicate with our network. Once those configuration changes were made, we immediately saw the testing platform operating as it was expected to be.
Was that before or after or during students testing?
During.
During. Okay,
Yes.
so it was fixed
So
mid-testing.
it was fixed April 27th. All of the symptoms of the spinning and the clock appearing on the student's devices randomly, and I do mean very randomly. You did ask about the scope and scale. My team was collecting data in every classroom we were supporting, and whether it was a classroom of 20, 24 students, the worst case scenario might have been 2, 3 students that perhaps had about a 5-minute delay in the process of getting into a test or getting hung up on a question. They might have had a 5-minute impact, which has the potential, as Pam has expressed, to add stress and concern to that student, and for all intents and purposes could have had an impact on their students' results. The rest of the class, less than 10% on average, 6 to 7% of the students were being impacted by a less than 1 minute impact. We were able to resolve that and minimize that to 1 minute with several little quick fixes we had developed in the process, and by having stacks of spare Chromebooks available at the ready. If a student had a problem, their device was swapped instantly and they were able to continue the test. So the impact was quite small, it seems, but I can't speak to emotional distress or anything to that effect that might have possibly happened.
So was it a problem with the Chromebooks?
No. So in the package, in your board packet this evening, I prepared a few visuals. Obviously, as it does become very technical, I tried to make a picture worth that 1,000 words, and I'll summarize it very quickly for you. The visual I'm holding up here for you has two grids. Essentially, the top rectangle is the communication from a Chromebook on the left-hand side, making a connection out and through all the different generalized network equipment to the Smarter Balance testing platform in orange. And what we had accomplished in working with every one of our vendors along the pathway, you'll see there are green check marks as we hopped our way out to the internet and all the way to the test. And we were able to verify with those little green packages, you see there's 3 green envelopes transmitting very, very successfully. The all green means everything was perfect all the way out to the Smarter Balance test. And the folks at Smarter Balance were able to tell us that as well. They were seeing our devices reaching out and sending them the information. The bottom portion is the return trip. So as the information comes back from the Smarter Balance folks and makes its way across the internet, you'll see that as it comes across the Connecticut Education Network, we start to see a little red packet in there. So the information return path was being broken. So to make it a little clearer, I did provide an enlarged piece of that section of the network. So it's kind of a zooming in on that little component right there. And I tried to visualize or represent the configuration or misconfiguration with the funnels that you see. So as the data came in, there's really no problem taking a small funnel and pouring data into a big funnel. You can envision that just pouring something into a pail, right? But taking that pail and pouring it into a juice glass, you have a tremendous amount of information coming back. And it was overfilling that little funnel that we have on our side. And that is typically controlled with internet standard configuration settings, which define the size of that bucket. And at the state of Connecticut's equipment, they had it misconfigured. They were configured for the other side of their device, which is a bucket that's 10 times larger than our connection to them. So that misconfiguration was causing information to try to be poured into that little funnel, and bits and pieces of it were falling out randomly.
This is fantastic. This is a really nice representation. Thank you. Because this I totally get with your explanation. That makes good sense. So thank you for that. So how did swapping the Chromebooks out help?
That's a great question. We are really just in the beginning stages of understanding some of the nuances of this lockdown browser that Pamela mentioned. So the Chrome browser is running its own unique operating system. It's like your cell phone. It's different than a Windows computer. It's different than a Mac. It has its own operating system. But when it goes into this testing mode, it actually has another system inside. And it puts up walls and protects everything from being seen. We can't see what's happening inside that testing communication. That's part of the challenge. The intellectual property that Smarter Balanced and the Air Company has is protected in this little sandbox, so they're not able to open it and troubleshoot with us. Same thing happens with NWEA with our map testing. They use the same lockdown browser, and again, they're protecting their IP in there. So we can't see what's happening, but we're working very closely with Google right now as well. Now that we've got the problem resolved and testing has been going very smoothly, we're trying to better understand from our perspective how we can troubleshoot and continue to go forward if, God forbid, we should have hiccups again. The map testing hiccup that Pamela referred to two weeks ago or so was, I think, about the 3rd or 4th day of map testing. We had very, very successful map assessments going off. And one day, all of a sudden, reports came in that things were acting wonky. Everything was a little bit sideways again, and they were getting some of the spinning. After a very quick assessment of our infrastructure, we did discover one of our file servers was misbehaving. We restarted that, and testing immediately recovered. And they went on to continue testing 2 or 3 more times that day and the following days as well with any impact at all. So that was something that was very, very quickly remediated.
Mr. Sylvia.
Thank you. All right. So we identified that there was a data packet corruption or incompletion.
Yes.
Once it went through the CE endo switch. Now, did we find any difference in the data packets once it passed the firewall?
No, again, our vendors were able to vet all of the equipment in and out. Once we were able to get clean packets coming into the firewall, everything was again vetted on the way in, and it remained green all the way back to the
All right,
device.
so both pathways have been vetted.
100%.
All right, so I missed that with no check marks, but
I thought it would be confusing on the inbound side. I wanted to more clearly show
all right,
the pathway where it broke, yes.
okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Dr. Braverman.
So Craig, how did it affect the actual experience for the students taking the test if they were locked out or hourglassing or whatever the equivalent is?
I don't know that I can honorably speak for every student's own personal experiences. We did have some of the administrative team come out and meet with us as well. I was in classrooms all day long, every day when we were doing the testing as best I could be, and my team were in other buildings and other classrooms. Our perceptions in general were that the kids were pretty comfortable with it. Our staff were very stressed, and it's frustrating because the challenges for them were to manage this environment. So if Pamela and Stephen and I had a problem, they had to stop what they were doing to try to get us back on the pathway again. And as that might have repeated 2 or 3 times during the course of the 45-minute assessment, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So there was some level of frustration and tenseness there. And the 3 students that Pamela spoke about, John Wallace, that simply could not take this assessment, I can't even begin to speak to where that problem was, but I, with 100% certainty, am confident it wasn't on our network.
And the validity of the scores is there, as far as we know? No?
We don't know that. There's no way they can
Right.
verify that.
And Pamela did ask that question of the testing folks, and I asked on her behalf as well.
I can only imagine how they react. I know.
Right, but do we know that that the answers they put in really went through, or we'll have to assume that happened?
My understanding is yes, that they will only answer that question on a student-by-student basis and an assessment-by-assessment basis. In general, they were able to tell us that they were seeing the information flowing from us very cleanly. And once we were past that broken point and had the pathway repaired, they were able to see that continuing as well. So.
We can go in the back door of Smarter Balanced and see what test item a student is on, and the way the test is configured, you can't move from item 5 to item 6 unless you answer item 5 or you mark it to go back to. So the example I used on Monday when we were testing our 5th graders, we were able to go in and look at where were they in the math. One student was on problem number 10, one was starting at number 1, and one was at number 12. So we do know what they've answered, we just don't know, as Steve said, their level of frustration. We did work with IT and put together sort of an information sheet this year for teachers to help them not feel as stressed and to help let them speak with their students in advance. If this happens, if you see a spinning wheel, don't worry about it. Just raise your hand. Someone will come over. If you need a new Chromebook, we'll give you one. So we try to lower student anxiety as well and stress, but every student is unique and different. I'm a little bit like Steve. I get really frustrated, and Bill knows I've often said, just ready to throw it out my office window into the courtyard.
Join the pile in mine.
Jane. I am sure the test results are affected by all this because my 5th grader was extremely frustrated. I know he didn't do as well as he could have. He complained about it constantly, and I know it impacts the scores. There's no way it doesn't. So, I mean, I heard firsthand about the issues. So that's my opinion, is that I don't think we have confidence in those test results.
So were some kids, I'm thinking of my own kids, who I think they started the test and then got kicked out and then they stopped testing and then restarted at a later date? That did they restart the whole test? Did they restart where they left off?
Once they go back into the test, it's called a pause, and when you pause the test, it pauses at the item that you need to take next, so that when you go back and you get right back to that, let's say item number 20.
So they were able to just stop where they were and then restart at a later time. Okay.
And they weren't necessarily the children that were having problems, because my son said, I started the test, but then we were told we had to stop.
Correct. There were
That's
some
different.
programmed breaks in the test and how it was meant to be administered, I think, is that what you
Correct.
might be asking as well?
There are stopping points along the way so that it does get paused.
No, he said that he had
No,
to
if it's
stop
a
and then
jam.
he wasn't finishing it till the following week.
That was part of the issues.
Yeah, what you're describing is actually how the test is built. So on the reading assessment, it's 48 questions. They know that's too long for one session, but they do not tell the kids stop at this point. They just tell the teachers, after an hour, have all your kids stop, pick it up the next day. So that, I think, is what you're referring to. That's actually planned that way, that they actually take one test and test over 2 days.
Yeah, but he didn't take it the next day. He said it was the following week.
It might have been, depends on the grade level and
Okay.
how we had
so
the
that wasn't
schedule.
because of the problems?
No.
Okay. Other questions? Okay.
A bigger issue I'm having, and I'm Craig. We've been pretty hard on Craig. I will admit that. But because every school district in Connecticut after 2012 was tasked with developing your own curriculum, contrary to popular belief, Common Core doesn't mean everybody writes the same curriculum. We all write our own using a common set of standards, and everybody develops their own assessments. And then you're tested with a standardized test. So I am trying to get to the point to determine if it's technology, if it's curriculum, if it's assessment, if it's instruction, what is it? I can't get past technology for 2 years in a row now, which is what really frustrates me. So the most emotional was probably me. Poor kids, leave them alone. I was probably more distraught than they were because I can't get past this first hurdle. If we have a glaring issue with our curriculum, with instruction, or with assessment, we can't get to it until I get past the technology. Part of me wishes they would go back to the old Iowa test, fill in the bubble so we can just throw it out and figure out if there's an issue with the curriculum we wrote, if there's an issue with instructional strategies we're using, if there's an issue with our assessments. Are those three things, the three pillars of everything we do, is there an issue with one of them? And I can't get to it because we've got this fantastic infrastructure, which, for whatever reason, in Newington, is not either keeping up or there are issues with it. So that's what's really the most frustrating, because we spent a lot of money on the infrastructure and we are running thousands and thousands of devices. We are running far more than most other school districts. Then I wondered to myself, is that part of the problem? So there's so many variables here that we're forcing Craig to make sure that we are staying on top of. And I will second Pamela, they did do a nice job. So we'll give credit where credit's due.
Okay. We're going to move on.
Have we investigated establishing a VPN between SBAC and ourselves?
That solution was not brought to our attention as a viable option. I don't know if it's even possible. It is an interesting question. That solution would provide a secure, dedicated pathway between our organization and their organization for the purpose of the testing. For those that, if that makes sense, it's a private tunnel where we would communicate inside that. That was not presented as an option for us. It
was an option presented as an option by who? SBAC?
By Smarter Balanced. I'm not sure how we would accomplish such a thing. They use a cluster of equipment in a hosted provider, kind of like Amazon Cloud. They use rack space. I'm not certain if it's viable, but it's an interesting question, and we could certainly investigate that.
But even with the Amazon Web Services, we can establish a VPN connection. I mean, if you could investigate that and provide that to Dr. Collins, I don't know if that would help alleviate and at least get rid of all of these potential block points.
It's something I can certainly ask them about. It's a very interesting question, and I hadn't thought of that myself before. We were busy being told by an external force that there were problems with our infrastructure, and to the best of our belief system, we knew for a fact it wasn't a problem on our network. Our vendors were telling us it was off the network. Poor Dr. Collins is struggling, going, how is this beautiful infrastructure we have not able to do it for this test, but it works every single day. It was, for me, this was a blessing that I was able to prove the monkey is on someone else's back. But yeah. Interesting question. absolutely no harm in inquiring. I will see if it is a viable option. Certainly worth seeing if it's something that is either anything to make it more robust would be a blessing. So I appreciate that feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Okay, we're going to go on to item number 4, which is a report on the strategic planning meeting that we just held. And is this going to be Mrs. Maraca?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Petronio. And thank you for the opportunity to share. First, I'd like to thank all of my colleagues who facilitated during strategic planning. I've had comments made back from some of our partners and our stakeholders who were present saying they were most excited because they felt it was probably one of the best strategic planning sessions. As a fact, Mr. Wells told me he was going to steal it and take it back to Travelers because he was so impressed by the process. So I would first remind you that there are, I know you've probably read this, so I won't try to bore you, but there are 5 focus areas that we look at. And on page 3, what I will highlight for you is the sort of the 7 overarching ideas or themes that we all came to the same understanding of. And the first one was class size, and often as the board you speak about class size at the elementary level, and our high school students at strategic planning, they were part of the 50-member committee, voiced their belief that small class sizes are important at the high school level because it allows them to make connections and personalize with their teachers, as well as it provides them an opportunity for more personalized feedback so that they can grow as students. So small class sizes were definitely something that came up frequently. You heard this evening from some parents and students, the academy programs, they certainly have put us on the map, but not on the map just because they're new and innovative, because of what they're doing for students' learning, as well as students' early understanding and knowledge of career opportunities that they have before them. Item number 3 was world language. Again, world language, they were appreciative of it being a core, but still are saying it needs to start earlier. We heard an echo of kindergarten and also an echo of more variety of world language, not just what we're currently offering, but expand world language offerings. The next was looking at a more comprehensive communication strategy. How are we communicating beyond just the technology ways that we're doing, which are our websites, our emails, our Facebook pages, but, and no offense because I am a senior citizen, but some of our seniors still prefer paper. And we may want to come up with a strategy for helping connect with our broader community so that some of those wonderful opportunities that our students have and experiences would be shared. And our media is very good at coming to programs and sharing photos and very small or very large articles about what are happening, but really being very thoughtful and strategic about how we're communicating with the broader community. The change in our community and the diversity within our community is looked at 2 ways, sort of as a great opportunity and a great plus to the community, but also brings in some challenges. And with that, there was a consideration for making sure that our teachers and our students had experiences with understanding a variety of cultures and the differences that those cultures bring. In the educational world, we use a phrase called cultural competence, understanding why students behave differently in a classroom, why they approach learning or even adults in a different manner, and what in their background might impact how they're going to go about learning and what they'll do for homework and evenings, etc. And then the last overarching theme or idea was that of expanding partnerships. And that was not just with universities, but that was regionally with surrounding communities, so that if there were opportunities such as the one we use with Glastonbury for our VOAG program, that we would then have those opportunities. So if Wethersfield is able to have a vibrant automotive department, because they do have that facility, it would be advantageous for any of our students who wanted to learn about automotive to have that regionalization. Also, thanks to Dr. Braverman, we have a dual enrollment program with Central, so also looking at expanding those dual enrollment opportunities for our students. And then looking at business and industry, we've built, Mrs. Davis has really been the force behind us, building some great business partnerships and continuing to expand those as we've worked with the Chamber, the Rotary, Kiwanis to continue those. I'm assuming everyone's fairly familiar with our 5 focus areas, the one being student performance and growth. And if you look at page 5, you'll notice at the top that there are some bulleted items. Those were the areas of accomplishments and achievements in this focus area: growth targets, reducing achievement gap, the 4-year cohort graduation, which is at 92.8 above the state, and then the annual graduation rate, which Dr. Collins spoke to at a previous board meeting, at 98.6. And also, we're very proud of our new open enrollment protocol for honors and AP courses, which allows students opportunity to challenge themselves. That was the highlight from Focus Area 1 in terms of accomplishments. Areas that we're working on and doing well are also our consistency for our understanding by design backwards curriculum development process, our professional learning communities, and areas for growth is what I highlighted earlier in terms of those partnerships, world language, etc. On page 6, you'll see focus area number 2. This compliments to Mrs. Kraus. We're successful in focus area number 1, and compliments to Mr. Farisi because he makes sure that in focus area 2 we're doing very well, which is our organizational efficiency, adaptability, and effectiveness. And I think as we look at the state of the state and the state of the town, efficiency and effectiveness are really going to be sort of what we're charged with, making sure that we're doing the most we can with the least amount of dollars. But in this particular focus area, you will notice at the sort of bottom of the page that there are bullets again highlighting that when we look at our new educator evaluation system, which Mr. Farisi has been facilitating, you will see that 99% of all of our certified staff are either in the range of effective or highly effective. Mr. Farisi, when he first came to central office, designed a substitute teacher orientation program, so our substitute teachers don't just walk in cold anymore the way they did many years ago and in most districts still do. His office and his staff are doing a wonderful job bringing in a group of the substitutes that we're hiring when we can hire them and providing them with some very important background information and preparing them to be in our classrooms. He's also done a phenomenal job researching data systems that have helped us to be very efficient, and in that we'll look at sort of how people now apply for payroll, whether they want payroll deductions, they want automatic withdrawals. He's looked at professional learning and the systems that will help teachers apply for professional learning. There are areas for teachers now don't have to call in for attendance. They actually go into an electronic system. So all of that maximizes the time and the efficiency that we have available. He and Mr. Salerno worked on developing a Newington Educator Technology Integration rubric. And really the commitment that this particular focus area has on the growth and development of our teachers is extremely important. So those are pretty much the highlights of the accomplishments. An area that connects with Focus Area 1 is on cultural competence. The 50 members agreed that there should be opportunities for our elementary and middle school students to learn more about cultural competence, and right now we use the Anti-Defamation League's program, The Truth About Hate, and as a former principal in another district, I used the program called A World of Difference with my elementary students, and so the committee thought that we should expand and look into that for our elementary. Focus Area 3, I facilitate with Mrs. Guglioso, our Director of Student Services, and that's really on safe, supportive, and healthy culture. I will tell you when it comes to facility safety, it was very easy to share that with everyone, so they were relieved. On page 8 at the top, you can see the bullets of the accomplishments. You heard from Dana about the healthy meals. Our wellness program now is K-12, and we do have wellness facilities at the middle level. You have heard about in the past trying to provide students, and if last time you went to our website, you saw Mrs. D'Alessandro's class with mindfulness and yoga for the classroom and brain breaks, all ways that we can help our students. There was an area of a gap that the committee noticed, and that was in the social emotional services that are provided to our students. So one of their compliments was also a recommendation, which is it's nice to have social workers at the elementary and high school, but why not at the middle level? And so that was one of the questions, why not at the middle level? As well as providing additional support for our students who may have some needs that will require them sort of some retraining in behavior, as we have our one BCBA looking at a BCBA assistant. On page 9 is focus area 4, which is infrastructure and facilities for 21st century learning. This is shared, obviously, the infrastructure with Craig, Mr. Salerno, and the facilities with Mr. Jacomowitz. I think we're ever so proud of our academy facilities, but we should also be ever so proud of the great work that is done in our school facilities to keep sort of older facilities looking very new. And I think we all can relate to that with our personal homes and what it takes to keep your house neat, clean, and tidy. I always tease Dick and say, is there anyone I can send to my house because they do a really great job and I'd love shiny floors? So you will note that the improvements in Wi-Fi one-to-one devices K-12, the tech support by our own students at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. You know, Jay Salerno, I used to hear about Jay all the time from one of our retired coordinators, and I would go, really? He's that great? He's really that great. And so he is moving us forward with Google. Not just Google, but what technology as a resource can do and as a tool for our students, and that to me is extremely exciting. Again, Mr. Jacomowitz is making sure that schools are receiving enough air conditioning so that Dr. Collins won't have to say, oops, Anna Reynolds doesn't have air conditioning, it's 92 degrees. It's like a boiler in there, so we need to dismiss as the way we used to it on the 3rd floor. When some of our board members were at Newington High School, they can remember those very warm days. So again, focus area 4 has many highlights. A few recommendations. One of our students said, so can I have more Microsoft Office courses? We do provide Microsoft certification, but they're really thinking if they're going out into the world, they might need to know how to use some of the Office system. And the other was to really look at, and I know as a liaison for NEF, look at some different types of furniture for our students, more flexible furniture. So chairs that wobble a little bit that you can't fall off of. A lot of you have seen the balance balls in some of the elementary classrooms. So they're really looking to say we need to build spaces or renovate spaces so it can handle different types. I was in a grade 2 class at Anna Reynolds and I saw a teacher had a section of 4 desks together and they were on, I think what my daughter took to college with, which were those bed risers, because some students in her class really like to stand to do their work. Others, she had little small chairs, balls, wobbly seats. So again, looking at other ways that we can help. There's also a need to look at athletic facilities on a regular basis to make sure that they're in step with what our needs are. And without Mr. Klett, I don't know how we'd survive without safety and security measures. So he really ensures that our schools are safe. And our last focus area on family and community engagement is facilitated by Mrs. Kim Davis. And again, on page 10, you'll notice the accomplishments and achievements. The high school advisory board is phenomenal. So if any of you were at that breakfast, you just know the change and difference that it's making for our students. The diversity of articulation agreements from Central to Manchester for our students provides them the opportunity to attend college for under 4 years, depending on the number of credits that they can achieve. And then also the opening up, which I mentioned earlier, of students' knowledge of really what are the career opportunities. I can remember my mother offering me 3. She said to me, would you like to be a nurse, a teacher, or, well, I think women can be attorneys. She said, but you know what? I know that they can be attorney assistants. I think the term today is paralegal, Jane. I looked at her and I said, you know I hate blood. I don't think I want to read a lot more about history and politics, so I guess I'll be a teacher. And again, today when I hear what students are going into, it's just amazing to me what they can do. And Mrs. Davis and her team have certainly opened that up. So again, came off often was social media. To put it in my words, it's sort of a blessing and a curse. And that was really the sentiment of the Strategic Planning Committee. It has great opportunities, but it also has some hindrances. So final summary is we asked the group if our actually Dr. Collins did, if our 5 focus areas could sustain time or were there needs for revision. And it was affirmed that our 5 focus areas may need some changes in their strategies or their action plans, but they are tried and true in what we need to be doing as a school district.
Thank you for that summary. I was there for that morning, and it was a terrific meeting. It was absolutely terrific to see so many members of the community. I loved having the students there. I thought they brought great perspective. I loved some of the things that they had to say, and Mrs. Maraca summarized a few of those. Any other board member comment before we move to the next agenda item? Mr. Sylvia.
They're working with the career academies and really all of our academies at the high school. What the recommendation was to expand it out so that students maybe not in academies could be invited to some of the lunch and learns and the internships and the job shadowing.
Terrific. Great ideas.
In focus area 5, we will, yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Maraca. We're going to move to the next item, which is another report, and I think Dr. Collins is going to talk to us about Connecticut's Next Generation Accountability Report.
This is the annual required report. This replaces the strategic school profile, if you remember.
Yep.
That I would do that.
You'd give it to us in all the different colors, the yellow sheets.
Right. And this is, I'm not going to do the colors anymore. I'm not even going to do a PowerPoint. I'm going to spare you that. This is an annual report that is required to be given to you. All the data is here. I'll just draw your attention. This is kind of baseline data. We're going to be looking at this for growth. So these are the numbers, and the metrics that are used are located on the bottom of the page. So academic achievement status, academic growth, participation rate, all of those things. They even do the number of students who are on track for graduation, which I believe is 100%. So all of those things go into factoring what comes out to accountability score or rate. And you'll see them listed there. For the district, it's 77.4. For Ruth L. Chafee is 68.9, 74.9 for E. Green, 74.8 for John Patterson, 91.5 for Anna Reynolds, 67.1 for Martin Kellogg, 69.7 for John Wallace, and 80.2 for Newington High School. Those numbers obviously are impacted by the test scores, standardized test scores. So how accurate they are, your guess is as good as mine. But I'm hoping to get to the point where we don't have to worry about that, where we can have some stable data and we can actually determine how well we're growing in each one of the areas. The other thing that does impact some of the schools is if they do not reach a certain level of subgroup, the data could be skewed as well. So you may be looking at one school over another and kind of trying to compare them, and you can't do that, because if they don't have a certain number of students in that group, they will not be scored in that subgroup. So you really have to be careful about comparing the schools. Do you have any questions? All the data's there, the charts are there.
What tests were used to?
So if you look at the bottom, all of those things.
Right, but what, like you said, our standardized testing.
So
if
some of
this
them
was
are.
a 15-16 report.
This is a 15-16 report, and when did you want to make it?
So if you're looking at this sheet right here that has the district results on it,
Right.
you'll see right at the top, these are the Smarter Balances results from last year. That's what
Okay.
they're going by.
Okay.
So when you look at 1A and it says ELA Performance Index for all students,
Yep.
you can see as a district, what they do is they set a target number over in the third column of 75.
Okay.
Based on the percentage of students that met the criteria, we get points earned in the next column, 45.8. They set a benchmark of 50 points for this particular item, And then in the second and last column, they're telling you that we actually earned 91.6% of the points we could have earned for that item. Does that make sense?
Yes, so we're looking in the second to last column to see our actual results.
Right, and then the last column, you see that the state average on that particular item was 67.7.
Gotcha.
Now, what Dr. Collins is referring to, if you look down to the next row, 1B, they then look at that same ELA performance index, but now they're pulling out your high need students. And that is comprised of special education, EL students, free and reduced lunch students. So anybody who's considered a high need population is pulled out into that subgroup. And then you can see, going over to the second last column, we earned 79.9% of what we could have earned for high need students. So you can see it's significantly lower than the all students, right? Now, what Dr. Collins was saying is that in some schools, the population was not high enough for all needs to even have a subgroup. So you might remember that from
can't
the
compare again.
right. So I'll use an example. At Anna Reynolds, they did not qualify for the high needs subgroup because they didn't have enough kids. So 1B did not even count for them.
Could that be
And-
why they scored close in the 90s and another school
That's
scored in the
exactly why.
60s? That's exactly
If
why.
we were looking at their report right here, they would have nothing for 1B, and then therefore it's not included in their points at all. So whereas the other schools had that 1B, and then you can go down to 1D and
Okay.
see the exact same thing for math, the other schools all had a percentage there where every school earned far less points.
And then that brought their average down.
And so
Okay.
that brought
that's
their
simply-
number significantly lower, whereas Reynolds, they left that number completely out of the equation, and so they were left up in the 90s.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions that we have about this report? Mr. Sylvia?
Do we have an understanding of what's the drivers, when I'm looking at the second page, third page that was just explained to us? I was picking up on, some of our numbers were way below state average. I'm looking at like, Ruth Chafee, 2D, math average percentage of growth target achieved, high need students. We scored 28.1. But the state average is 57.4. Do we understand what the drivers are behind that, or?
It would, again, vary by school because, as Mrs. Kraus indicated, those are students with disabilities, so your population could be different at different schools, so that it changes. Although the test is considered adaptive in Smarter Balanced, it's adaptive within a grade range.
Right.
So some of our students with disabilities are not up to the grade, but because they're designated as third or fourth grade, they must take that grade level assessment unless they meet the criteria for taking an alternate assessment, and that can be no more than 2% of your overall special ed population.
So I'm asked to take a test based upon my age or the grade that I'm assigned to?
The grade you're assigned to.
Okay, so we have students of special needs assigned to, say, the third grade,
Yes.
but they're still at a second grade performance?
They could be reading at a grade 2 or lower.
So how do they get past to the third grade?
Because they have an individual educational plan, and that has special goals for them, so you can only expect a student to grow so much within a year. So they get individualized instruction or small group instruction, and they may have different programming. And so it's not a matter of catching up, it's a matter of teaching to the student individually. So everyone grows at a different rate.
Right, which is, I understand that, but I used to flunk, right? So if I wasn't performing or hadn't captured enough information to make it to the next level, I repeated the class again. But I'm hearing that we now teach to the...
We would not retain or have a student with special needs repeat a grade level. That's not really going to help or benefit that student because they have a unique learning style or a unique learning need. We probably would not even do that for, unless it was significant, for a general education student, because what the research says is retention isn't necessarily what's going to work.
Depends on the individual
It depends on the
situation.
individual situation.
And so
So flunking me didn't help.
I don't believe so.
No.
But I didn't know you then, so.
All right. Interesting concept. All right.
Dr. Braverman.
So, Ms. Maraca or Wendy, what do the titles on page 1 mean? Indicator, index rate, target, what are those?
I'll try to answer it. Okay, so I'll attempt to answer it without going to a professional learning seminar on this. So the first one, the index rate, is what they set based on the percent of students they expect you to have there. And then so they're basically saying 68.7 is the percentage of kids you should have there, that we have there, 75 is the target. So then you see how much we're missing the target by. And that's how they determined the points that we earned out of the 50 possible. So because we didn't, if we had hit 75, we would have gotten all 50 of those points. But because we were at 68.7, we're below the target, they have a formula that determines those points earned in the next column over. And then just to clarify, because I'm looking, if you do flip over to the Reynolds page, which is further into the packet, about 8 pages in, it is actually down in the 2B and 2D where you'll see they don't have percentages, because what happens at the elementary school is that we only have 2 grade levels that take the assessment, and we only have growth targets for 1 grade level, because our 4th graders we have growth from 3rd to 4th grade, but for our 3rd graders, it's the first time they've ever taken the test, so there's no growth for them to make, and that's why Reynolds doesn't qualify for that subgroup number. There just weren't enough kids in that 1 grade level. So that's why when you get down to 2B with the percentage growth, there is no population there for that. Does that make sense?
Yes. And other towns did similarly in our DIRG, or we're still using that word, DIRG?
It varies.
It varies, and we haven't done a town-to-town comparison.
I think the state is still trying to grapple with the formula, if you will. I like the accountability index model where you're using multiple data points. I think that's a good step in the right direction. The problem is they're trying to figure out what those metrics are right now. And they're, I think, being a little sloppy in my opinion.
Aren't you supposed to do that before you give the test? Do the metrics?
Emily.
So, in just trying to figure out what all of this means, so sometimes a low percentage may not be.
A low percentage would be good in some areas.
So it depends on the area.
Right.
Yeah, and it's all different.
In absenteeism, you would want a low percentage.
Right. But even when we're looking at, percentage of points earned.
But if you also look at the weight they're putting on it, so the maximum points for the average percent of the growth areas, which is what we really want to focus on, is growth. They're assigning maximum points of 100, where the others are only 50.
Okay, so like on 2A, where it's ELA average percentage of growth for all students at 58.2%.
Right. The maximum is 100.
So that doesn't sound like a lot of growth. Is that what that means?
Right.
Okay.
Wendy, do you disagree?
No, I mean, the tricky thing here is that they're looking at percentage of kids who hit a growth target, which means they basically say, if your child got I'll use simple numbers, a 30 on whatever range of scores you're looking at. They get a 30 in year 1. They will say, we expect your child to grow 8 points by next year, and they need to be at a 38. And then if they don't hit that 38, they didn't hit their growth target. They might have gotten a 37. So it doesn't mean they didn't grow. It means they didn't hit the target that was set for them. Now, we do this internally with our MAP assessments. We set growth targets for students. We use a lot of the information that they give us with the normative data. But one of the things that in our training, what they teach you is that kids don't grow in a straight line like this. They don't grow 8 points this year and 8 points the next year and 8 points in the next year. Many kids will have spurts where they grow 16 points in 1 year, and then they might level off for a little bit. And their plot line might actually look like this, but over time, there should be a trend line in there that shows you that they've grown at a good rate. So it's not abnormal for kids to even go backwards sometimes if they had this big spurt, but then they kind of level off a little bit. So that's why looking at percentages, they say they expect 100% of kids to hit their growth target, but our training with NWEA is that which is the company that runs the MAP assessments, is that what's more realistic in the normative data is about 60% of your kids to hit their growth target in any 1 year.
So we are testing once a year with this, but with MAP testing, we're testing fall, winter, spring.
That makes I understand
Right.
map testing, so
Yep.
that explanation makes total sense to me, but I think that somebody looking at this that doesn't have that
Right.
background would look
Right.
and say, oh my gosh, this
That's
looks
why
not good.
this is very dangerous looking at it
Yeah.
at one snapshot in time. Right?
And even right now, they only have 2 test scores with Smarter Balance, so we're only looking at the growth from here to here, whereas with our MAP assessments, we have fall, winter, spring for 4 years now.
Right.
So we have a lot of, if I do a line plot on any kid, I can see, wow, you can see that this is an anomaly, or that the child just had a spurt, so we're not so worried. Whereas if we're seeing, the lines go down and the trend line is not strong, that's where we're more concerned.
So teachers get kiddo by kiddo.
Right.
They can go, they can look at it, fall, winter, spring, every
Right.
child all the way up.
My concern is that when not knowing any of that, if somebody looks at this,
Right.
it doesn't tell you any of that story.
And that's why, as a board, you have to understand the bigger picture. So when
Yeah.
people ask you those questions, you know what we're doing internally for each child, so that we are assessing growth and expecting growth for each child all the way up, regardless of all of this.
Over time, will this show that? Like after they've been doing this for a while?
Remember, this is not, would this be the same cohort? So, are we testing cohort to cohort?
Oh, right.
It won't be a matched cohort.
Right,
It would be
right.
third grade from 2014, 15 to what they performed as fourth graders in 15, 16. And that was another factor at Anna Reynolds. They couldn't match, I think was
Some
one
of the kids,
some
if a
of the
kid
kids.
moves out,
If a kid moves
in,
out,
if they don't have
can't do
matched
it.
data, they're not
They
part
can
of that.
only use matched data.
Our population is becoming much more transient, and it's really showing.
But to your point, Emily, over time, this you would consider baseline. And then over time, you would be able to judge if you're getting stronger or not.
Right.
But you can't look at the baseline data to say it should have been higher. We don't really know because it's the first attempt. If I would also point out that when you do look at those 2A through 2D, looking at the growth targets, and you see where we are in the first column to where the state is, and I'd remind you that the second year where they're taking this growth from is last year, where we did feel like our results were not very representative. Our internal data was much stronger. Our MAP data actually showed a very high percentage of kids hitting their growth targets. And on the Smarter Balance, we did not see that. So that's one of the things that Pam and Craig were talking about earlier.
Right. So I'm trying to get to the point where we can use this reliably and responsibly, which is why I wanted to check the technology off the list so we can get to this. But until I know this is somewhat accurate, it's hard to, I don't want to say hold anybody
Decide to
accountable.
make changes.
It's called an accountability index. And so, the whole premise of, holding somebody accountable on this is hard to do if you don't know if it's accurate or not.
How do you even hold somebody accountable if, like you said, the growth target is 7
Right.
points and they only get 6 points, and so you don't earn those points on here, but they did grow, and maybe that was an appropriate amount of growth, but whoever at the state said it should have been 8, not 7. How is that ever going
Wendy,
to be?
correct me if I'm wrong, but every child is assigned a expected growth target. Yes?
Yes.
No? Okay.
Yes, and relatively speaking, like for a group of fourth graders, the growth target is going to be very similar, but they do, if the child is very far behind, the growth target might look different.
Right.
But if you're on grade level, your growth target is going to be the same across the grade.
So
Kids
does
who are
this
performing
account for
very
that?
high, they might have a smaller growth target because they know you're already performing way up here, so that you probably won't make an 8-point gain, so it would be a smaller growth target for those students.
So is that accounted for in these numbers here?
Yes.
Okay. And does the state assign those growth target? I mean, I know we do our own internal
Yes.
growth targets for our students, but then the state assigns them what they expect here just based on trends.
Yeah, I mean, it's really smarter balanced, it's a smarter balanced. I think I showed it to you back earlier in the fall when we were talking about smarter balanced test results and what that growth target is from one level to the next. So it is established. What it doesn't take into concern is or into consideration is if you score one result, Steve and I get the same result, but it doesn't account for how we might be different types of learners. So as Wendy said, different students grow at different rates. So I might have a spurt, but Steve might not. So it can't account for the different types of learners. It gives a generic growth target based on what your score is.
There are several metrics that we can track though now, the cohort graduation rate. So now that is defined, we can start tracking that now. I'm just a little skittish on the standardized test scores, but everything else, the arts access, we can track that. The physical fitness test, we can track, all that data, all those metrics that are used individually to assign the ultimate accountability score. So we can track a lot of those metrics now. It's just the others that we have to, unfortunately, wait another year.
I'm going to trust you on this one because this doesn't it's hard for me to wrap my head around that some of this is ever going to be accurate.
Right.
For any individual school, but if you see it going that way, I will wait and see.
I would rather trust our own, because we're using standardized measures as well. So it's not like we're just making our own stuff up.
No, I love the map test. I love the feedback that gives.
So that's showing very different results. Though we have to make sure the technology issues are gone.
With so many caveats, what value does this report have?
The state was required to come up with a way, this is nationally, to judge all this stuff. So they threw these things together and adjusted it, and they continue to adjust it. So right now, unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of value. Whenever you start off something new, it's going to take a while, obviously, for the state to, I don't want to say get their act together, but you know what I mean. They're growing as well, as are we, as is everybody else. A lot of stuff happened in 2012, and every school district was required to really up in the apple cart, and now we're trying to synchronize again.
Okay, I think we need to
Thank you for the
move on.
explanation.
Yeah, thank you. That was important. We have now 5 action items. We should move through these fairly quickly because these have all been discussed at our last meeting. So now we're just making motions to get these things established. So we're going to start with number 6, which is an action item. It's the establishment of meeting dates for the 2017-2018 school year. Can I have a motion? Bob?
Move the Board of Education approve the following dates for this 2017-18 school year. Do you want me to read all the dates?
I think we have to. Yep.
September 13th, 2017, September 27th, 2017, October 11th, 2017, October 25th, 2017, November 14th, 2017, which is an organizational meeting, December 13th, 2017, January 10th, 2018, January 24th, 2018, February 14, 2018, February 28th, 2018, March 14, 2018, March 28th, 2018, April 4th, 2018, April 18th, 2018, May 9th, 2018, May 23rd, 2018, and June 6th, 2018.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Braverman. All those, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next action item is the use of school building fees for the 2017-2018 school year. Can I have a motion? Cindy?
Move the Board of Education increase building use fees by 3% beginning July 1, 2017.
Can I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Ancona. Discussion? We had quite a lively discussion on this last meeting. Josh is not here.
Just remind everyone, Josh's vote is a no.
Is a no, yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously for those who are here. Right? Okay. Okay, we are now at action item 8, which is a meeting cancellation, because I believe that is the night of our teacher retirement. So recommended motion, Emily?
Move the Board of Education cancel the regular meeting scheduled for Wednesday, June 7th,
Thank you.
2017.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Ancona. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Action item number 9 is the approval of the textbooks that we looked at last week. They went all the way around. Can I have that recommended motion? Emily?
Move the Board of Education approve the following novels: 1984, Angela's Ashes, Bird by Bird, Columbine, First They Killed My Father, The Handmaid's Tale, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Reading Lolita in Tehran, The Sound of Gravel.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Second by Dr. Braverman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And the last action item, number 10, is the transfer of funds for the 2016-2017 school year. So we'll read the motion, and then I'm sure we will hear from Lou. But can I have somebody read the motion first? Jane?
Move the Board of Education authorize the superintendent of schools to make the needed budget transfers which will reflect an unencumbered balance of 0, which may include up to 1% of the encumbered funds to the surplus account and at the end of the 2016 to 2017 school year.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Seconded by Emily. Discussion? Who's in your wait?
Okay. In reviewing the proposal for the various adjustments program by program, major item the board needs to keep in mind is the utilization of this year's health benefit credit. Okay. If everyone can recall, it was $1,285,000 XXX for the last $100 or so. And part of that money ended up being redirected as $701,859 to the non-lapsing account, with the remaining $584,000 that was still within the operating budget. How that's resolved in this is the $701,000 is a surplus, is committed money that is staying within the employee benefit account, and the other $584,000 is being moved to the maintenance account for the various projects and other maintenance activities that will go on. Now, some of the circumstances right now with such a large sum of money is we're ahead in certain areas as far as our decision making, as far as what's going to be decisions that we made, for the benefit of academics. For example, if you look in the math program, you'll see that the $5,000 is what is needed as an increase in that program. And that is because the decisions have already been made about the advancement of the new math program in the district. I'm not quite as far along in some of the maintenance and some of the other decisions, so it's quite possible that not all of those dollars will ultimately end up in maintenance, by the time the year unwinds on June 30th in another 5.5 weeks. But for expediency and being able to disclose it in a very clear fashion for all the board members, I chose to put it into the maintenance account. We certainly could move money in other places, but it's not going to affect our ultimate decision-making process. Okay. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. Other items of significance that are here, you can see that we're over a net $277,000 in the special ed area. That's net of the $400,000 we've received for excess cost grant this year. this is still where we have the high-risk situation that we're going to be facing for next year. To kind of just a quick recap, our most recent forecast for next year's tuition was $3.7 million. Our net tuition budget, assuming the special ed excess cost grant was there, was we only have $2,667,000. So we have $1 million gap. Right now, that has not been reestablished in Governor Malloy's budget proposal, even though there's discussions of it continuing on. But just with the sheer magnitude of the budget gap, have to realistically view something is going to be coming down. Maybe they'll cut it in half or diminish the value of that ultimate excess cost grant for ourselves. And as everybody recalls, that was the circuit breaker grant that steps in when you have high cost cases on a current year basis. If that security for the school district goes away, it puts the board and has to be in a much more risk adverse position because there is no place to go for any extra money. Okay. So in our budget planning, we were holding $600,000 into the non-lapsing account as our hedge against the special ed excess cost grant. And I'm hopeful the ultimate resolution up at the state, maintains $400,000 of funding for through the excess grant program or whatever its successor is that's here. So we bridge that gap. So we're still, really dependent on what happens up at the state capitol next month. And, these are things we can't take lightly, and we have to really, view them in our longer term planning that's here. So, so now jumping back into this particular motion, we have the various adjustments. You'll see the $700,000 positive in maintenance, $601,000 negative in benefits. That's embeds the $584,000 adjustment into that as a plus and minus equaling zero. The only other major item, and I was really just looking at it in the last day or so, and I didn't have really a clear answer, is in the other salaries account. We're trending significantly below our typical trend line at negative 333. And when I was looking at it this afternoon, we were about $150,000 ahead of where we were in our daily substitution pool and long-term sub pool. And I just didn't have a chance to really get inside that to determine how much of it is our inability to staff current positions, as well as it's probable some good fortune is not having really a significant number of staff members out this year for any lengthy absences. So I think it's definitely a combination of those two. It's just I don't know what the specific degree of those two at this point. Everything else is very modest as far as the budget numbers. When you're at a $70 million budget, a $70,000 variance is only 1% on the budget. So we have very consistent as far as how the plan rolled out to what our original estimates were. So any questions?
Mr. Sylvia.
I didn't, thank you. So Lou, what's driving, if I'm reading this right, a $701,000 increase to maintenance?
In this budget transfer proposal, I'm putting $584,000 of what was the health benefits credit, moving it from the benefits account into the maintenance account.
Right, so I'm asking what's driving that need of the additional funds to maintenance for us to increase it by 700,000?
Well, you would need 115,000 or so to get it to where it is today. And looking at the rollout of the program over the last 6 weeks and our decision making, we fully anticipate that's going to go up. We certainly could leave it in the benefits account, but it will not impact our decision making. When we are making our decisions toward the end of the year, we are advancing all of the programmatic and overall needs of the district in these last 6 weeks.
Maybe I also heard what happened when we defer the maintenance. Remember, last time we built a building was 1972. And the buildings.
So maybe I'm not asking the question. Are we buying more air conditioning? Are we fixing heating systems? What are we doing with this?
Yes, all of those.
All right. So here's my question. If we can easily move $500 and something thousand from employee benefits to another item such as maintenance, why can't I move those to teachers?
But it's only good for this year, for the next 5 weeks.
Well, Understood.
It doesn't gain me anything for next year.
You're still recommending a move of $700,000 that I can apply to teachers.
No, this is
came
the
from the
health
health benefits
benefits money, Steve. No. This is the health benefits money. We took the 700, we rolled it over. We took 700 of the 1.2. Can you turn off the microphone?
My apologies.
We took 700,000 of the 100 and 1.2, the 1.2 million, and we moved that over to the non-lapsing, and that left us about $500,000.
In non-lapsing, understand.
No.
It's
We
in the
put $700,000 in the non-lapsing. It left $500,000 in our operating budget that has to be spent in the next 5 weeks.
Oh, this is for this year.
Yes.
Yes.
My bad. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to shut up. I'm now on planet Earth. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lou? We have a motion that was made and seconded. We had some discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
All right, where are we? Okay, the next item is the superintendent of schools report. So I've asked Dr. Collins to very briefly go over what's in the report, and then asked for the second part of his report to kind of recap what happened with the town council last evening. Okay?
Thank you. So as I start off each month, I want to go over enrollment with you. It just keeps going up. So we appear to be very attractive to a place to live and go to school. We are up about 86 students over projected. And as you see at Anna Reynolds, we are at almost 500 students. And at Patterson, they're up to they're almost up to 400 students when they were projected at 363. So we are bursting at the seams at the elementary level in some areas, and we have a little bit room, to breathe. But overall, 86 students that we were not projecting is very difficult because the class sizes are higher, yet the kids have to be put somewhere, so they are higher. So that's the enrollment. I do have some good news. Jay Salerno is currently working with the Chicago Public Schools to do their professional learning with Google. So we are getting some national recognition. It's quite an honor to be asked to help out Chicago Public Schools. So that's nice. Jay's doing that. We have lots of other great things going on, and as you know, in curriculum instruction and assessment. As far as operations go, you may have heard over the past couple of weeks, 3 of our buses were hit by, for the most part, people not paying attention. One bus was loading students, stopped on Main Street, and a car ran into the back of her. We had another car crossing the intersection over on one side of Garfield, and a car ran into it, ran a red light, ran into it. We had another bus who was just coming back to the garage on the other side of Garfield Street, and a car was going around it and smacked into a truck that was pulling out of Garfield Street. None of them have been, obviously, the driver's fault. The good news is the buses are built like tanks, so there has been no damage to the buses. Obviously, nobody was hurt, but there were a couple totaled cars involved when car meets bus. So I just want to remind everybody out there to please pay attention when we had another bus come, because once the bus is involved in an accident, we take it off the road. We don't allow it to continue. And even though there's no damage to it, we removed the black box and so on. We had another bus parked right behind it, loading the students, and 2 cars, while 5 police officers were right there, 2 cars went through the SOS lights. So I want to remind everybody, stop means stop. So if you are out there, we are going to start getting very serious with turning you in. And it is about a $500 ticket and 3 points on your license. So I want to advise everybody, please, if you see the red lights, stop. It's not an option. Okay? So enough of my lecturing about that. You talked a little bit about I'm not going to go over the expenditure summary report because you see where we're over in some areas. So Lou explained that very nicely, but that is there for your review as well. As far as last night goes, I'm not quite sure how to explain it, other than saying,
Start with, we did send a copy of the memo to everybody. We
Okay.
waited for feedback from everybody, and then we sent it. So I want to start
Right.
with that.
all right, so you all have a copy or received a copy of the memo that
Yep.
Ms. Petronio sent to the town council requesting $625,000 that is earmarked in the capital budget for John Wallace Middle School. We can't do that project until 2019. So Mrs. Petronio asked that $625,000 that is currently budgeted and earmarked for the board, we asked that money be transferred into the board's operating budget to fund a couple of things. Teachers is number one. I want to hire teachers. I want to open the STEM academies. I have to pay the special ed bills. That's not an option. So, hence the $625,000. To do all of those things, it would be about $733,000. So even the 625 wouldn't be enough to do all of those things. So the board would have to make choices. So we thought it would have been an easy solution. It was out of the box thinking and something that would not cost anything to the town. It would not increase taxes. It would not increase the budget. It would not increase the mill rate. It was simply a transfer from capital budget to the board's operating budget. We were told last night that can't be done. They didn't want to do that. It would be setting a precedent, and that ship has sailed. We have set many new precedents. We have never used non-lapsing funds for operating costs. Never. We've never had a non-lapsing fund, right? We have that now. We've never used health benefits money for operating expenses. We've never done that. It is bad practice, bad practice, bad practice. Yet, here we are. So we are currently sitting at 1.73 below zero to start with the 2018-2019 budget. So you are going to need, the board is going to need, just to get to zero, 1.73%. So doing anything else but moving money into the board's operating budget is going to put you in a worse position than you're in now. So we can't possibly entertain any other option but to move money from a capital fund into the board's operating budget so it is there and it will be there for the following year so you can fund those things. The more you, I don't want to say play games, but the more you do this shell game with the money, the worse off you're going to be. We're digging ourselves so deep into a hole that coming out of that hole is going to be near next to impossible. So the dance, so to speak, went on for, it seemed like 4 or 5 hours last night. It wasn't. But nonetheless, the question was asked, when do you need to know? And I said last night, because we have a couple things that are going on. The longer we wait, the less likely it is going to be that we are going to find a teacher. So let's say that we got the $625,000 into your operating budget and the board chose to fund the academies, open the academies. Great. Remember, you still have to pay the special ed bills first, not optional. So, but let's say you had money after we figured out how much, and that you wanted to do that. The longer we wait, you're not going to find teachers to do that. We also have to do the student schedules. We are so far behind. The schedules were supposed to be done by May 1st. So the question was raised last night, can you wait until the next town council meeting? I sensed the answer was going to be either wait till the next town council meeting or the answer is going to be no. So to avoid a 5-4 vote, no, I said yes. Now, of course, I said yes without asking the people who actually run the schedules, which I did promptly this morning. We cannot wait until the next town council meeting. We can wait at most a week and a half before it's dropped dead too late. Not going to be able to do it because remember, we have to get the schedules done, run, fixed, and adjusted before the kids leave for the summer.
Emily.
I've heard a number of parents say that the kids in the middle school academy selected their classes for next year and now they're locked out of classes. So have some schedules been run?
No, we haven't run any. What the counselors are doing right now is they are meeting with students and they are asking them to try to select other courses. So they are actually taking the requests out.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
My son's at the academy, the Aerospace Academy. And he's in 8th grade. He had his scheduled in one of the engineering classes that he chose. It's now out of his schedule because we didn't get the budget money and it was done.
Out of his request.
It was out of his request. Sorry, it was out of his request. So then his counselor and I spoke, and they said, okay, he's got 6 courses requested. He now has to come up with another course because they're not going to offer the engineering. So we've put in request for backup options. So that schedule's going to be run with the backup options. That's how it stands right now for all of the students. However, based on last night, there's a glimmer of hope. Nothing's been run yet.
No, okay, so I guess my confusion is that there's parents that I don't know if the parents have been told this, but their impression is that not only are their kids not getting those STEM programs
Right, well, that's true.
requested, but in addition to that, they're getting just the scraps that are left over from the courses that have already been run. Like parents feel like their kids are going to get no
Let me
classes.
correct that. None of these courses have been run.
Okay, so those kids have the same shot at getting the other classes as anybody else. Okay, that's
the
a
problem.
real concern.
Once we run it, that's when it's too late.
Okay.
Yeah. So that right now there are only course requests. So it doesn't matter if you did it 10 weeks ago or if you did it tomorrow. You are putting in your requests. That's what the counselors are doing right now. So once we load the students and then run it, it will spit out the schedules.
But I can see how they can feel that way because when I was asking for different options, they said, oh, there's only 4 spots left or 16 spots left or 2 spots left.
No, they can put them in their only course requests right now.
You're right.
Once they run them and the kids have their schedules, that's when the seats start shutting.
Okay, I don't think that that's necessarily the message that parents are getting.
I've kind of heard bits and pieces. Only the scraps are left. No, I will remind everybody, and I want these academies to be successful. I want them to go forward. Absolutely.
We all do.
We started this 8 years ago. This is the final piece of it. We just spent $2 million, which 58% of it will be paid for by the state, which, as I reminded the town council last night, I have to put on a different hat, and I have to say, sorry, state, Newington isn't doing their end of the bargain, but so why are you paying this money to them? You need to talk to them about this. Or maybe withhold the funds, or maybe ask for it back. I don't know. Hopefully we don't get to that point, but we may have to. Because the state certainly isn't interested in funding things that aren't going to operate. They're not just going to renovate your building just so you can have it sit there. And that's the deal. We got 58% reimbursement with the understanding that we were going to open these things. That's one piece of it. Remember, none of that matters until I pay the special ed bills.
But to your point, Dr. Collins and I have discussed a couple of times this week and last week, we do have to communicate because we said in our last board meeting that we knew we wanted to communicate to parents right away, those 325 kids at the high school who had requested those courses, that it wasn't going to be available. We were holding out, though, because we were trying to come up with this proposal, and Lou was working with Bill, and we were, again, kind of holding out hope that maybe something would change. So there was no formal communication that it was a done deal. And we've kind of been in this limbo.
Right.
And we've been all muddling through it. It's not ideal. You're right.
Everybody around me tells me there's no hope, but I'm being the stick in the mud here, and I'm trying to hold out for a little glimmer of hope. Last night I was not encouraged though, so I thought last night was going to be it. So I was holding off telling parents there's no chance because I was holding out hope. And last night, it was pretty clear there's really not a lot of interest in moving it forward.
So besides the interest, Lou, can you explain, so I know the town council got, they went to the town attorney to get an opinion. And I just don't understand the part of the opinion that talks about the funds maybe being available, but in the second half of the year. And I didn't know if that was a hard yes or a no or a maybe. It was a charter thing, but can you explain that?
There's two approaches that can be taken. One is that there is a new appropriation that is authorized, which adds to the taxes of the community. So if the town council wanted to go the route of a supplemental appropriation of $625,000, that would add $11,000, $50 a household in taxes to put that out there. That's one choice they have. The other choice in the situation is they will transfer money from another location within the budget that's already adopted. In the request that was put forward, there was a degree of ambiguity about it. So when Attorney Ancona was reading it, it appears that he was looking at sort of from both possibilities, is either a new appropriation or as a transfer. In the established rules of the charter that have been in place at least as long as I've been here, which is 24 years now, there's always been the provision that there's a moratorium on transfers until January 1st. So it's a matter of that accounting transaction cannot happen until after January 1st. Now, I have not seen the town council take action in the past, basically future dating that transaction, saying, okay, we're taking action at the start of the fiscal year, or right now saying, this is a advanced transaction that we're making that will be implemented in January. I'd have to refer all of that back to the town attorney for, the guidance that he would provide both bodies as far as what's reasonable and appropriate to the requirements of the charter. The other discussions around the table last night, spoke to, if there's a rule, you can always make a new rule, or you can always adjust it and, take action in different fashion as long as you're willing to live with the consequences of that. Some of the commentary about that spoke to encumbering the next elected town council with the results of that decision if it was made now. And that was a point of concern to all of the individuals around the table. As far as how the town would want to go about doing that, support it, I would hope that they have, are probing and looking from their point of view as far as what they could support for you. As Dr. Collins mentioned earlier, starting with a 1.73% hole to dig out of for next year has dramatic consequences on the, existing programs. So if the town is not able or, can't see a path to providing permanent funding that can be used to open the academy and deal with the special ed bills, everybody's going to be sitting with a very difficult decision to make as far as where is that line of risk that you're willing to take, because like Dr. Collins said, the special ed bills are going to come due and we have to pay them. There's no way around it. Putting the money into discretionary programs compared to mandatory obligations, is a very fine line that, our crystal ball isn't that good that far out. So
If the $100,000 were to come in, it'd come into our operating budget?
that was the request.
That's the request. I'm just saying, if that happened, and then next year, that would be part of our starting point. So that would
Correct.
knock something off the 1.7 that you're talking about.
Not really. At this point, you still have that same deficit, because the manifestation of this request is a combination of the risk in special ed
Right.
and the desire to open the academy, which are all add-ons to the original request. So you'd still be at 1.73% going into next
Oh, right,
year.
right. Yes. Yes, okay.
If you want my personal, because last night I couldn't say anything because I was a guest. I'm not a guest tonight, so I can say whatever I like. So I'm going to give you my own personal feeling on this. Over the past 8 years, I have presented, I think, reasonable budgets. This year, I presented a very reasonable budget. I presented only my payroll. That was it. Because I wanted to make sure that I understood and recognized the ability of the community to pay. It doesn't excuse the community for providing the educational services for the children in this town. And that is my number one priority, and I want to make that very clear. What I saw last night was absolutely unacceptable. I saw 5 people in plain English not do what they were supposed to do for residents of this community. We have 4,000 children who attend our school system. They deserve just as much as everybody else, and they're not getting it. 5 people. We have worked for months to try to come to a compromise to get people to do what's right for the children of this community. I am no longer interested in hearing about all of these other sleight of hand and side deals and all that kind of stuff. You have to decide whether or not you want to provide an educational system for this community or not. And if you don't want to do it, I think you need to say you're not going to do it. And that's my opinion. If you're not going to do it, say it. Don't go putting articles in the paper and all of that kind of stuff. Say it. Be upfront about it and do it. And I couldn't say it last night, but I'm going to say it now. Thank you.
Mr. Sylvia.
Lou, are we still in a favorable position with a potential employee benefits windfall this year?
Yes.
As a result of this year?
Correct, right.
Are we still trending towards that 800 plus thousand?
No.
No.
In the March 20th memo that the town finance director issues giving the status of the credit calculation, that was $1,084,000, I believe, initially. And it's based on 8 months actual activity for this fiscal year, plus the last 4 months of real activity for the last fiscal year. Okay. So coming out of last year, we had 2 months in the 400,000 range of claims, another one of 500, and the last one of 600. Okay. So that yielded that significant positive position that we were at. In 10 months actual, in 2 months estimated as of yesterday, just indulge me for a second, I did bring that piece of paper with me when I looked at it. The credit sits at a 10 plus 2 at 841,077 as of right now. And our monthly trend line is 628,078 of claims. Okay. Now, the May and June numbers were 485,100 and 424,491. So we have to do 150,000 better and 200,000 better than our this year trend line to maintain that $841,000 credit. If we just hit our par number for all year, the credit will be down to 493,252, and if we're over our trend line, it'll be something below 493. So, as I know when I spoke earlier, I was spitballing. I thought we'd come in around 700,000. I think that's very optimistic at this point. 500,000 is probably about the best we're going to do.
We wouldn't happen to possibly land at 627,000? So the thought that was running through my mind was, I understand the ask that you put before the town council to increase the operating budget. I was just wondering if there was an opportunity with that to backfill the CIP request with the windfall. But it doesn't sound like it's going to be enough to match what we're asking, what this ask is for. All right, enough of that thought.
Yeah, we're speculating at this point.
Okay, all right, I was just trying to think a little bit.
And again, to summarize, the concern is that we needed a 2.97. We're at a 0.3, and yes, we were able to save many jobs. Not all of them, not enough. But I'm very worried that 2.49. What did I say? Sorry, I don't know where I was coming up with that. 2.49. I'm just very concerned that a lot of these positions are basically one-year positions right now because we're using one-time money. We're just it's not a good situation. Yeah.
So what is the status if we need that answer in a week and a half? Is a special town council meeting being called, or what's?
We were hoping for something last night, but they made it very clear as the dance began that they were not going to, either the answer was going to be no, or they were going to put it off for as long as they could. We can't wait until the next town council meeting, so we need a week and a half is the max. So if they have any interest in saying yes to the $625,000, not just enough money to open the academies, the $625,000 that was asked for. If they have an interest in doing that, they need to let the board know within the next week and a half. I don't know if they have to have a special meeting. I'm not sure how they operate anymore over there, but they have to do something.
Has this information been related to them that we need to know in a week
No,
and a half?
I just learned today. So last night, it was either going to be no, which I've heard 5-4 all along anyway, or, I'm trying to buy us a little bit of time here.
So then we either need to communicate that in a memo, or I see we have our town council liaisons here, so I'm assuming they can take that back. Thank you. They're nodding. They got it.
Well, last time they said there wasn't enough time because it was only 5 days that the board did not give them time, apparently. So I'm not sure how much time they need, how much more time they need to make this decision. It doesn't seem to me like 2, 3, 5 weeks is ever going to be enough. We know what the answer is going to be and how the vote's going to go.
Cindy.
It was clearly very frustrating last night. I was there for the entire discussion, and I clearly was not happy when I left. One of the questions I have is because I don't understand, and I don't know whether that I just misunderstand. So I know that we're asking for the money from the CIP for Wallace. That's money that is set aside for educational purposes, for building purposes. But one of the comments made was, well, we can't even make that decision because we don't know what we're going to get from the state fundings, but we don't also know what we might need to use that money for other things.
That was very interesting.
Can we do that?
It's never been done before, but here again, we are talking about things that we've never done before. Right. So the town council approved a budget. There is a budget document. That money, that $625,000, is sitting in the capital fund for the Board of Education. So if we do a purchase order on July 1 for $625,000 for that project, the money's encumbered. So as they say, that dog doesn't hunt. So the school buses, July 1st, we encumber the money, we buy the buses. The Chromebooks, we do a purchase order, we buy the Chromebooks. What's the difference? So if we decide that if the board decides that it doesn't want to move that project forward, which you can't anyway, so that $625,000 for all intents and purposes will sit in an account doing absolutely nothing. So you can't do that project anyway. So if the board moved that over to the operating budget, yes, it will raise your budget. It will. But that argument doesn't hunt either, because that would only assume that somebody was going to give you a 0% the following year. Because if they gave you the 625 and it increased the MBR, the minimum budget requirement, they would have to fund that $625,000 the following year, because it's part of your operating budget. It's part of your salaries. The 1.73 should be funded the following year too. But we're out on a limb so far that I'm not about to put us out on a limb another $625,000. You're past the point of no return there. It's just very, very irresponsible.
I just want to make a couple of things clear, because I know that we're all discouraged and we're all trying to figure out things. But there were some comments made today that I want people to understand that they're discouraging comments, but in their true comments. The comments about the scheduling, it's true. I used to be at the secondary level. I got that. When you said yes last night, I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to hate them. I just, and I knew that wasn't going to fly. The other thing.
I already got the intervention today.
Yeah, I just, so I was like, all right, we'll go there. I don't have to face them tomorrow, so that's okay with me. But the other thing is, yes, it's if it comes through, it is very late for us to get quality people to hire. But I don't want a decision made on, well, they said they couldn't hire anybody anyways. So I want that clear, that it will be difficult, but
we'll
it's
do
not
it.
going to be impossible that we'll do that.
Have we ever not?
But because some of the things we say, I think, get festered, and I think people grab on them, and then they think that's the truth, and that it really can, and it is the truth. It's very difficult. I'm going to tell you right now, my daughter she's a tech teacher at Newtown. They still don't have their graphics person, and she's on that committee, and she's like, she's been pounding the pavement to me. She's like, I don't know why they didn't post it months ago. Now we're getting the dregs, and we don't even know if we're going to get someone good, and that's the reality of it. You wait this long. You wait until June. The cream of the crop is taken. That is true. It will be difficult, but I don't want someone making a decision based on the comment here saying, well, they said they can't hire anybody anyways. I want to because I think that those things get twisted in this game that we're playing, and I want to be clear that we are we are having much difficulty, but they need to realize that that doesn't mean close the door.
Right. The games are being played with our children, and that's the frustrating part of all of this. Really is.
Emily.
I also just want to make clear to the parents that we desperately want the teachers at the STEM Academy also. I hope that they know that. That's been our goal for many years and the plan for many years, and a very difficult decision to not fund that this year. And obviously we're trying everything possible to get the funding for it because it's something that we desperately want for our kids and for the program going forward. I think it's good for our students and it's good for Newington.
But I'd like to interrupt you for a minute because I just want to be very clear about this because I could see what's coming, which was part of my intervention today. So let's say that there are nice members of the town council say, well, here's $200,000 for you. Open up your STEM academies. I still have to pay the special ed bills. You know what I mean? So I don't want to look like the bad guy if they decide to pat me on the head and give me $200,000 to open up the STEM academies when I still can't pay the special ed bills. Now I become the bad guy. Why they gave you money? Why didn't you open them? Because I have to pay the special ed bills. The request was for $625,000 that is already under, let's say, the board's purview. That was a request. It wasn't a request for $200,000 to open the STEM academies. It wasn't. So I want to make sure that people understand that because I don't mind being the bad guy. Believe me, I'm the bad guy a lot, and I don't mind being in that position, but certainly not for this because I want to open those STEM academies too, but I have to pay the special ed bills.
Okay, hang on though. I have one other point though, just along what Cindy was saying too. Although this is definitely not the ideal time to try to find a teacher, it is not undoable, and it would be a great opportunity for a teacher. It's an amazing facility. They're going to have kids coming in. They will not believe what the base that the kids already have and the spot that they are going to be able to start from. So I think it's a fantastic position for a teacher, and any teacher would be really lucky to jump into that spot. So I like to think that, again, it's not the ideal time, but I like to think that there's definitely opportunity, not undoable there.
The other thing we really should find an answer out about the fact that using funds to build a facility, we really need to know whether or not that we might have to pay that money back because we need to know that. If we're building a facility, we were given money from the state to do this facility, those fundings, and we don't put the program in there that we're going to, we need an answer for that because that's going to be even another, what, $515,000 was that?
We have, the town is due, let's say, $1.1, $1.2 million. And I want to be careful about using that number because that number comes up a lot. It's completely different. It just happens, right? They've already received $550,000. They've already gotten that. So the rest will be coming. I have to decide whether or not I want to, and I shared with the council last night, I have to be careful because my allegiance as an agent of the state has to be first to the state of Connecticut, even though I don't think they deserve it. But the reality is, they're my first boss, and the board is my second. So, I have to, I can't lie to them. And so, the board, we need to open. If we're gonna take the money from the state, you need to do it.
So Lou, I'm coming back to you again. Bear with me. So of our 70 million and a few nickels budget for next year, the salaries are right around 46 million? And the
Without
rest
looking,
is...
I'd say that's somewhere around there, yes.
All right, so let's just say for discussion purposes, here's a thought going through my mind, which tells me the other cost that are allocated to the other groups is about 24 million. And if we're trying to find $625,000, that basically says we need to find about 2.6% savings in each other line item that's currently in our budgets to generate the $625,000. Now, so it's a stretch. This is where my mind's going. Is that impossible to try to find 2.6 savings, 2.6% in each variable line item that we have, such as the gasoline, such as I'm stretching here, but I'm trying to figure out the $24 million is our variable expenses. Salaries are fixed, but except for the teachers.
Probably 2/3 of the $24 million is permanently committed to outplacement tuitions, other contractual arrangements that can't just be walked away from.
Right. Remember, I cut 600, and here's that number again, $625 or so thousand already, 600, what's more than that, from those accounts going into it, because I knew I had additional special ed costs, so I cut it from everywhere else. So we've already cut the gasoline. We came into this with all of those things off the table. We've already done all that stuff. We've cut over $600,000 from that stuff already.
All right,
We are down to a point where we are trying to operate a world language department with $4,000. We're trying to run a music department with practically no money, and they have more than just about everybody. Our budgets we are running an athletic department with half of the money that they need. So all of those things have been cut already. You also have to have things. We can't go without paper. We can't go.
Well, okay, so my premise of 24 million variable is erroneous, that it's a far smaller number of what's actually a variable element of the budget.
Very, very little.
Right.
Okay.
And when you speak
All right.
of variable, when you speak of, cut the electric bill 10%, the presumption goes that, we just won't run the air conditioning next fall and next spring. Some of the, implementation requirements just don't have a lot of traction. We won't buy art supplies because that's a variable cost. Or forget about, classroom libraries for, the reading programs and stuff. So
right, the bus is
a lot of
already
these
out. The technology's already out. So that stuff is already moved over to
don't
CIP.
fuel the buses because they're variable costs. So, you don't have anywhere near the room you perceive there is to implement, blanket line item cuts across the board.
Okay, so to summarize, what we need to do, kind of to Mrs. Ancona's point, where we're at, it was important that we discussed tonight that the June 14th or 16th date is really not doable. I think we have Carol and Diana here and from the town council, and they're nodding, so I think they got the message that if the town council were to consider our proposal, that we would need a decision for high school scheduling purposes in the next week and a half or so. I also am worried, to Emily's point, and we've talked about this at great lengths all week, every day. Dr. Collins and I have spoke about this, about letting parents know kind of where we stand. And again, it's fluctuated so much. The courses are out. Well, maybe they're back in. Well, we do at least need to communicate that that we are still in limbo, and decision will be made soon, and then we will move forward with that. So, did I miss any takeaways, Emily?
Just an emphasis on that, letting the parents know. Understanding that being in limbo is uncomfortable and nobody likes it, but we're only doing it with the hope of having the best possible outcome.
Exactly.
It's better than being no.
Right. So
So there are 350 kids out there. If you have your parents, not that I think it will do any good, but email your town council, because it's not the board. Email your town council and tell them there are 350 kids who have registered for those courses that are not going to get them. So,
And I don't know how to say this. Again, look what our budget ask was, and look what we got. We're doing the best we can. We were cut from our ask, from our request, from what was needed to fund salaries. We received $1.8 million less than what we needed. Yes. So again, look what all the needs are. And what we're being asked to do with that money. We spent hours last board meeting going through. We ended up on option 2A. It's really difficult, And again, we were told, we'll use your health benefits money. That's one-time money. We did use that. We rolled over as much as we could to the non-lapsing account. We're using all of that for salaries next year. So we have a lot of teachers right now that are in place. But basically, they're in place for 1 year right now. We're on 1 year money. We are not using operating budget money. We are using health benefits money that we're putting into our operating budget, which is variable because it's not going to be the same next year. So I just wanted to say that once again. With that, I'm going to move to the next item on our agenda, which is item H. Public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. If anybody from the public would like to come forward, or if anybody would like to call in, our number is 860-665-8736. If you could just state again your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Ricardo George at 130 Waverly Drive. I just have one question. I know the timing. We're all in limbo, like everybody says, but there's any possibility that we could start interviewing or start looking at possible, teachers for this academy? Because we don't have time. But if we're going to wait another week and a half, or whatever, we are a week and a half more behind. There's any possibility that we could start that process? At least, we got to do it if we're going to do this, anyways. But start that process now. I think there's no cost to that. But at least if this will become a reality, at least we are a step ahead. That was just my question, if that was a possibility for that.
we're not supposed to answer, but it would be very difficult for us to post a position and then interview people and then say, oh, never mind. Right.
Prospects, yeah.
Right, I know.
It's done in the consulting world.
Wow.
Every day. They're on the bet that they're going to land a contract. They're out looking for the resources to fill the contract, and then at the moment that the contract is not fulfilled, yes, it's the position is no longer available, and the interview process is over. But I know it happens all the time. I experience it.
Our reputation has really suffered over the past couple of years. I would hate to do any more damage to it by then sending out a message that we're really that unstable that we can't figure out whether we have a position or not. So I'd be really careful about that. I'd love to, but I really would, but I don't know.
Point taken, though. Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we will move to item I, which is remarks by board members. I'm tired. I don't know about you, but we'll start with Dr. Braverman.
Well, on the happy note, I was so happy to see the 7 students, or the 5 and the 2 girls that weren't here, that went to the Invention Convention. Even without money, I guess we're doing great things, but we certainly need the funding that we need. And last night at the scholarship awards, you were busy doing other things, but $117,000 was given out to the students. that was an amazing thing, a wonderful evening. We were all very impressed.
Our very own board representative, Jeremy Ripple, I think he
got it.
cleaned,
Yes.
he cleaned house.
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
I'd just like to congratulate all the high honor students that received their awards last week. I believe there was 216 total.
I think there were more than that.
Were there? Well, congratulations to every one of them anyway. And congratulations also to the students that were here earlier this evening.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I got to do a couple of fun things this week. The scholarship breakfast last week, which is great to see so many kids doing so well, is really exciting, and I think it's a really nice event for them just to be celebrated for their achievements through the year. And then we did the scholarship awards program last night, and it's emotional. There's so many families that have scholarships in memory of loved ones, that it was very touching, and to see all our 80 kids up there getting scholarships was pretty impressive. So that was a really, really nice night, and I appreciate being asked to be a part of it. And then today, the Anna Reynolds celebration of learning, seeing the elementary school kids coming through there today, very excited. They were dressed to the nines. I was like, those girls are wearing higher heels than me. They were very fancy, and there was some suits, and it was really fun to be a part of that also. And then Martin Kellogg is one of 2 finalists for Connecticut's Association of Schools Middle Level School of the Year. They had a visit today from, I think, the visiting committee. So I know they did great, because that's an amazing school. So whether or not they get the first place or the second place, I think is
huge honor.
It is and I was going to say either way, an enormous honor for them, and so congratulations to that school for that. So another highlight in Newington. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you. No comment tonight.
Cindy?
I just want to say that the end of the school year is an exciting time in general, and unfortunately we have this cloud over us, but it is exciting to hear about all the special, scholarship nights and all those recognition nights, and just the excitement of graduation and moving on, and we do, just by the proof tonight with the children who went to the Invention Convention, we do have excellent things happening here, and we are really lucky about that. And I just want people to know that things, it's tough, but we still are doing, our due diligence, and the kids are really, really doing great, and the teachers are doing a great job and really sticking to it. And those teachers, people don't realize how much time and extra time and energy those teachers put into when they're doing things like the Invention Convention. We have teachers who go above and beyond daily in other areas that you won't even know about. And we had the art, reception today. All those things are amazing and wonderful things. And we really, that's what we're all really here for, is to celebrate that. And I just wanted to make sure that we end on a positive.
Can I just add in the art, that art program also? I walked through the art show one more time. Yeah, no, I don't want to leave them out. That was wonderful too. It's exciting to see them.
She's seconding what you're saying. That's what she does.
I'm going to third that. All these ceremonies and all these end of the year things, it's my favorite part of being on the board, to see our students and their accomplishments and celebrate them. And I'm blown away year after year, and all the students we see, and they're so talented, they're so smart, they're such high achievers. I mean, wow, we have the best students, and I'm so impressed, and they do me proud, and they do our town proud, and that is a positive thing to end on, and our students are the greatest. So
Very well said. Enough said. So thank you. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Your hand was up first, but you said it. All those in favor? Aye. And we're adjourned at 9:47. Thank you.